What is up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about Canon's EOS R and why this aged, old first generation mirrorless grandpa of a camera has more to bring to your workflow than you think here in 2022.
I got plenty dreams in the real view.
Before we jump into it all, quick little reminder to tap that like button, click subscribe if you haven't already, and leave a comment below if you have any questions or anything you'd like me to cover in future videos. So let's paint a picture. The year is 2022. The camera market is looking pretty spicy and everyone's shooting in 4K, 6K, 8K, there's even 12K. And every videographer is getting those cinematic, high resolution shots, color grading 10-bit footage. So you may be thinking, why on earth would I ever invest my money into a 4-year-old camera that shoots slow-mo, has a weird 4K crop sensor readout, and has this weird slide touch tab thing that literally everyone who's used it has something negative to say about it? To this, I say hold up.
Wait a minute. Fill my cup, put some nigga in it.
We may have underestimated the true capabilities of this gem of a camera Canon has made. So to make this super easy, let's break this down into 4 sections you as a content creator should be looking at. Number 1, video. 2, photo. 3, camera build. And number 4, the price point. So let's jump straight into video. Let's cover what this camera can do. At 720p, you can shoot 30, 60, and 120 frames per second. At 1080p, you can shoot 24, 30, and 60 frames per second. And lastly, 4K. You can only shoot 24 and 30 frames per second, and you're gonna have this massive crop of 1.5 times, so what looks like this full frame is actually gonna look like this. Yeah, this is pretty close. Now, the beauty of this camera actually lays hidden within the specs everyone seems to be critiquing. Yes, there are limitations, but let me tell you, all cameras have limitations. But when you look into the level of quality these video options actually have, you're gonna be pretty surprised at what you're able to do. For example, when you're shooting at 1080p at 60 frames per second, all I, you're gonna be recording at 180 megabits per second. So here's what that actually means. When you have a higher bit rate, it means that a larger amount of video bits are being uploaded within a second. This naturally leads to a higher quality video relative to its resolution. So although it's 1080p, the information within this footage is so much that the image retains quality even when you run it through a tough color grade or even upscale it to 4K sequences, meaning you can have it paired with other 4K images in the same sequence and you won't be able to tell that there's a difference in resolution even though it's 1080p. This camera also shoots in C-Log1, which means you have the flexibility when color grading and also retain some dynamic range to create great images. All right, let's jump straight into photos. This camera has a 30.3 full frame CMOS sensor with dual pixel autofocus. This allows for photos to be super high resolution when posting to social media and or print advertising, all while making sure whatever or whoever your subject is remains tack sharp. Also, having Canon's color science for photos as well as on video side provides you with a look you can trust straight out of camera, which provides you with the ability to color your images more effectively in programs like Lightroom, Premiere, or even DaVinci. And yes, although this isn't the fastest camera, if you know how to use it and change the settings depending on your environment, your images are gonna look absolutely solid. And lastly, to touch back onto that 30.3 megapixel sensor, this 4-year-old camera has the second highest count of megapixels in all of Canon's newest lineup of mirrorless cameras. The R5 and R5C both share that same 45 megapixel count sensor. The R6 is gonna have a 20 megapixel count sensor. And lastly, the camera that's actually geared towards photographers is gonna be the R3, which only has a 24.1 megapixel sensor. So when you really think about it, the EOS R sits real nicely on that totem pole of cameras when it comes to the quality of photos. Next up, we got the camera build quality. Now, every time you pick up this camera, the ergonomics around it feel on point. I've used cameras from different companies throughout my career, and they've either felt too clunky or too edgy for my taste. Now, what Canon has done is really think about the user experience and crafted their mirrorless lineup of cameras to feel natural and ultimately fun to shoot with. The EOS R has a pretty solid weather sealing. The grip on the contact points feel robust and tactile, and after 2 years with this camera, it really hasn't worn down on me. Here's some extra key features I think are on point with this camera. It has an amazing flip out screen that makes it super easy to film by yourself. The battery life is on point. What used to take me 4 to 5 batteries on Sony during shoots now only takes me about 1 to 2 batteries, if that. The touch slider bar that everyone seems to hate does take some time to get used to. Instead of seeing this as a negative, I made it work for my workflow when on a gimbal, and remapped it as the ISO adjustment button. Basically, when this camera is balanced on a gimbal, I don't need to physically shift a knob or click a button. I can just tap with minimal contact, therefore keeping my gimbal perfectly balanced and operating as smooth as possible. The RF mount. Now, I love the new direction Canon took to make their new lineup of mirrorless lenses. I do have a few I use already, but what I love most about the adapter for older EF lenses is to be able to have full functionality on the R. Yeah, it does add about an inch and a little bit more weight, but having this option makes older and cheaper EF lenses a viable option. And lastly, the SD card slot. It has room for only one, and I'm not sure why people feel like they need 2 card slots like newer cameras do have, but in all reality, you should just buy a higher capacity SD card and get to filming. Lastly guys, we got the price point. Now if you're like me, you're always down to save money when it comes to buying cameras. And the EOS R has been one of those cameras that has bounced its price point so many times. I've seen this camera as low as $12.99 during Black Fridays years ago. If I can go back in time. And I've seen at its highest price, and unfortunately the price that I paid for, which was $17.99. So if you were to look this up right now, it's actually at a reasonably great price point of $15.99, which is what I think is a solid buy if you're looking to go full frame mirrorless. Now the EOS R sits right above the brand new crop censored R7 price point of $14.99 and well below the full frame R6, which sits at $24.99. Now that's over $1,000 difference if you choose the R route, which is perfect for picking up additional lenses like the 35mm RF lens or the 50mm RF lens, which are 2 amazing lenses that still leave you with extra money in your pocket. Now if this isn't a deal, I don't know what is. So we've come to the conclusion, guys. Is this 4-year-old EOS R really worth it in 2022? Absolutely. Not only do you get a bang for your buck, guys, you get the second best megapixel sensor in their lineup of mirrorless cameras when it comes to photos. The quality of video, even at 1080p, is so good. You can literally upscale it. And lastly, Canon just knows what they're doing when it comes to their cameras. They've been doing this for so long, and they just know how to make a solid build in all of their machines that delivers for content creators like us. I really hope this breakdown of the EOS R really helped you if you're in the market for buying a new camera. Yeah, it's got a little bit of age to it, but it truly packs a punch, and that's why I think it's the most underrated camera of 2022. I'll see you guys on the next one. Hey, just wanted to say thanks for sticking around to the end. If you haven't yet clicked the like or subscribe buttons, would love it if you did that. And if you have any questions or suggestions, definitely drop it in the comment section below. I'll see you guys later. Peace. We're headed for the